Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silk Olajide.
And we still don't have the Stretch, but he is coming back. You know, any crazy rumours you may or may not have heard, we can neither confirm nor deny them, but Gary will be back pretty soon. Silk, there was
we miss you, Gary.
Yeah, we do. It's not the same without him. I mean, certain things, I don't know. We started this as Sugar and Silk, and we'll soldier on regardless, but he will be back. Silk, last night in San Francisco, Devin Haney pitched a virtual shutout, or even an actual shutout over Regis Prograis. Did a real number on him, knocked him down with a lead right hand in the second round, and just dominated the whole 12 rounds, really. Your thoughts?
My first initial thought was, I mean, they talked a lot of smack before this fight.
Didn't they?
Both of them did. Oh, they were going. Well, Prograis did, that's for sure. I know that. And I know Haney's father, they were going at it. So there was a lot of back and forth there. It's kind of really, when you talk that level of stuff and you go into a fight and that's the performance, those are the results. It's just not a good feel. You don't have a good feeling about yourself. I don't know what Prograis is going to do, because that kind of level he talked. I mean, everyone in the world that knows him watched that fight, and now he has to face that. Like, it's almost better sometimes to go out on your shield than it is just to know you went the distance.
And to get completely shut out like that, like you were never at the races with the guy, completely owned.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was like a thrashing every round, you know what I mean? And the thing is, Haney was, as usual, like, he was careful.
Yeah.
And if he's careful, he's respectful. But here's the thing: if he just picked up the intent of trying to work to get the guy out of the ring, work to get him out. If he worked to get Prograis out, he probably would have stopped him. And he would be that much further ahead because of it. He'd have a lot more, I guess, respect from other fighters. And
you know what, that's what I saw today. People said it was a punch-perfect performance in a lot of ways, and you can't fault him. But they said, but if you could fault him, you could say he could have tried a little bit harder. He's, harder to close the show. He could simply be a little bit better at closing the show when you're that superior to a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an ability, and once you start putting your hands on a dude and they can't hit you back, then you start being, you understand, you kind of got him tamed, and he'll go for all the things that you want him to go for. It's not every single fighter's like that in every single fight. So I don't know if they're maybe a little bit afraid of, him getting caught by a lucky punch, but lucky punches don't happen.
We don't believe in lucky punch, do we?
No, absolutely not.
Do you know what? If I don't want to sidetrack from the fight we're discussing, but if I was trying to think of any kind of scenario closest to a lucky punch I've ever seen, I wonder if you can think of any. One that springs to my mind is when Audley Harrison, remember him, got knocked out by he knocked out Michael Sprott at the I believe it was Alexander Pavilion for about 2011, and he was losing the fight by a street, and I swear to God, Audley, who was never the bravest guy temperament-wise, he closed his eyes and he threw this overhand southpaw left, and it connected, and he knocked Spark out. That is the closest thing I've ever seen to. I always decry the lucky punch until, to me, that's the preserve and the language of the casual. But that's the closest I can see. What about Chris Eubank? Did you see Chris Eubank versus Michael Watson, the almost tragic fight, the rematch?
No, I didn't.
Well, I don't know if you heard that Michael Watson was in a bad way ever since. He's recovered remarkably, and it's been very inspirational, his kind of recovery to relative normality and mobility. But he was in a coma for quite a while, and he was wheelchair bound for a long time. And, to the point where when he rose up and was able to walk the marathon, that was a very inspirational thing. But years later, but he was battering Chris Eubank Senior, you got to the 11th round, and he was dominating him, and then he put Eubank down, and it was just like the icing on the cake, and you thought Eubank's going to get stopped here, even as tough as he is. Then as Watson came in to finish him, I'm not going to say for the kill, Eubank threw this prayer of a right uppercut. It looked so instinctive, and it rocked Watson back on his heels, and Watson went down, and unfortunately, it hurt him, and he was in the bell rang, but he was in a bad way, and he shouldn't have been allowed out. With hindsight, for the 12th round, Eubank battered him as soon as the 12th round commenced, and the referee stopped it quite quickly. But he took a lot of unanswered shots and then fell down unconscious. And then suddenly they had a kind of a hospital situation on their hands. That was another scenario I'd say is about as close to a lucky punch as you'll ever see. But it's still not luck, is it?
It's not luck, because that's exactly what Chris Eubanks, he was still trying to do. He was trying to hit him with the shot. He threw the shot with purpose and with intent. And because he threw with intent, that's not lucky at that point. Even if the person closes their eyes and throws the punch, I don't think that was lucky, because that's something like you have to know how to punch, and you have to know when to punch.
And I'm sure someone else, if you'd have stuck like Dave from Dagenham or Arkansas in there, he probably could have closed his eyes and thrown a shot, and it wouldn't have done anything at all. So yeah,
exactly.
Say hello to Bruce Gass, Boxing Jazz and more. He seems a pretty cultured guy. Good, he understands guys like Marlon Starling and the like. So he's a good person to be watching us.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining us. So, I mean, what instances do you remember, like when fighters, they can hold their head up after talking that kind of smack, and then giving that kind of fight, giving us that
performance?
Kind of yeah.
I don't know if you saw the post-fight press conference and any remarks from Regis Prograis. I just watched a bit. You know, it comes up on your feed on social media. And he said, well, I'm he was the better man one. I like that. When basically the performance suggests not only was he the better man tonight, he's the better man every night of your life between now and doomsday. And nobody in your family tree could beat anybody in his entire genealogy either, it looked like. But they always say the better man won on the night. I lost to a better man on the night, So yeah. So he said that, and he said, "I'm going to go back, to the drawing board. I'm a work on what I did wrong. That's what I do. I'm going to get better." And whereas,
his corner tells him with 1 round left. He said the corner says you have 1 round left. You have to knock him out or something like that. But they don't tell him. There's no communication. How can they? Yeah, he has to knock him out. How does he do it? Every single round that happened in that fight, there was a point when his corner man could have said something to him. And I didn't hear every round, obviously, in between every round, but it seemed to me that his plan never changed. Nothing shifted up. He had no ability. Like, he was in first gear and stayed in first gear the whole fight. And that's the thing. Like, what are trainers doing? I mean, I understand, ultimately it's the fighter takes a beating. He takes the pain. He gets the main cut of the money, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But at some point, the trainer has to be responsible for some of those things as well, because, I mean, you are a fighter's brain trust. As the trainer, you're the brain trust, and you've put the strategy together and all those things. You by yourself, you've studied, Devin Haney, all his weaknesses, all his strengths, and what you've done is you've taken Prograis and you've put him in the gym for 2-3 months, and you've taught him the little idiosyncrasies, little things that are going to make a difference that he's going to be able to get Devin Haney to. Why shouldn't he be able to? He's not like he's slow. He's not.
And here comes Devin Haney doing exactly what he does. So it's not like
nothing was any different. And they didn't give him one thing, because I didn't see him adjust at one point in the fight. And he did a number of things which are absolutely crazy. I'm like, what is he doing? When he was always stepping as a southpaw. He was always stepping over to Devin Haney's right hand. Yeah. And I don't believe the right hand is the best. You know what I mean? The best punch to hit a southpaw with is what you hit him with. I don't think it's necessarily the straight right hand all the time. But when you're squaring up and you're moving right into it, then yes, of course it is.
Of course you're going to nail him with it, yeah. Well, yeah. I think the right hand is a good shot against the southpaw, but we've spoken about it before. If you think that's all
the left hook is better. But the right hand's good too. Yeah, every punch is good if you hit him with it.
But do you know, is it true to say that Haney did observe that basic boxing 101 logic of moving to his left a lot of the time against the guy last night? Most of the time.
That's the thing. Like, fights, that's why it could be so much more of an easier fight for Prograis if he would have just, like, this is Devin Haney. He bought into it. It's like that's the theory, or that's the, you know what I mean? That's the legend. And so now he's playing his game, And so what you need to do, you need to exploit that. You need to do things around it. Let me give you a simple thing about Devin Haney, what Devin Haney always does, and the reason why Tank is going to beat him if they fight. Every time he throws his jab, his right hand disappears, goes behind him like this. So he's got reflexes. He's fast. He's got, you know what I mean? But Progray's guys don't teach him that. Like every time this man throws a jab, he's open. That's the time to counter. That's the time to initiate.
Yeah.
Progray he's waiting. He's waiting for Devin Haney to stop and give him a turn. And the nature of Devin Haney's style is never to stop. His feet are always moving. So the puncher or the aggressive person always has to set before he punches. So this kid doesn't know how to punch and move simultaneously. Progray has to wait until Devin Haney's finished punching because Devin Haney gets off faster. And then once he's finished punching, then he can cut, then he can punch. But then Devin Haney's not there. So what can you do in order to counter that? Well, as soon as Devin Haney throws, you make a miss and then you counter. Devin Haney's predictable in that he's going to throw probably 50 to 60% of his punches are going to be jabs in a whole fight. 50 to 60% are going to be jabs, right? That's pretty much like the thing on him. So you know that. That's his main weapon. You need to do things to counter that jab. And there's a billion things you can do. He throws his jab, drop down, come over with the right hand. He throws his jab, slip into the left, come with the left hook. He throws his jab again, you pull back, and as he's coming in, you counter with a left hand or a right hand. There's a million and one things he can do, and he didn't do one. And that tells you the problem was his trainer.
You know, we've said it before, Michael, that they're okay when they've got a fighter who's winning and they just get back to because you don't need to tell a guy a lot when he's doing well sometimes and everything's working out the way you thought it would. You give him water, you say, yeah, that's looking good. Be a little careful with this. Be careful of that, blah, 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 and send him out again. But when there's a crisis and when you really need to earn your money, they often seem to find themselves wanting, don't they? You know, where they don't have anything to say.
Yeah, I don't hear anyone shifting up, and you know what I mean. They get emotional. What are you doing? And all that kind of stuff. It isn't. There needs to be a school for a lot. I mean, there are some great trainers, but there are a lot of trainers that they just don't get it. They don't understand what they're there for.
By the way, some people have suggested it. Bruce and Sarge have suggested that maybe he's getting a little long in the tooth, Progray. Maybe he's a little shop worn. Maybe he's a little shocked. Maybe he's past noon. That is another factor that some people are highlighting.
How much did he make last night?
Money?
No. Money.
How much? What I said money.
Yeah, how much money did he make?
I don't know what the purses were, to be fair. But maybe Simon, if he's in the background, because he said he'd be joining us at some point, could find out. Maybe someone else could tell me. I mean, you know that Haney doesn't fight for change. I would imagine it would have been a 7-figure payday, but quite what it was, I don't know. I must admit.
For Progray or for
yeah, for Progray would have got 7 figures. I mean, 3 to 4 million, says Abid Ali, we're calling the professor, so he's not normally wrong.
No, Progray got that for. Oh my
God. It wouldn't surprise me, Silk. And if Abid won't be guessing, he won't be guessing. I don't think.
There's another thing that happened in that fight. I guess when the reality, like the punches, always bring reality to the forefront, and I guess when he felt Haney's punch, when he either jab or hook or right hand, whatever it was, something told him this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And one of the main things in boxing, the most successful fighters have like a built-in pain management.
Yeah.
If pain is causing you discomfort to the level that you cannot operate and you can't get through it, around it, and think through it, you're finished. It's like there's nothing you can do. And to me, that looked like Progray didn't look in that fight against Haney. I haven't seen any of his other fights, but he couldn't operate feeling that pain. He got very careful, and he was picking his shots and very predictable punches, and it was a safe performance.
Bruce says that I think Regis just met a better fighter. I've talked to his trainer Bobby Benton, and I can't put the blame on him. That was just a view there.
Okay, so and what part of your conversation with Bobby Benton did he have? Like what?
I don't know. I mean, I guess he's spoken to him in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but what part would make him think
I guess he's
he's
just
doing
formed
the
an
right
opinion
thing
of
for
the
program?
trainer.
I'm
I
sure
guess
he's a nice. Listen, I'm sure he's a nice guy, and he obviously has somebody who's world rated, so he's doing something right. I'm just saying, when you get to the door, when you're there, you're at the ball, and you're fighting.
Do you know Alexander Usyk demoted one of his trainers once? He didn't fire him. He just demoted him from head trainer, and he was simply a campaign after that. And Usyk said, "He's a nice guy, but being a nice guy is not a profession."
Yeah.
That was what he said, So I thought that was quite resonant,
Yeah.
It's interesting what you say. How much training?
You know what, Ben? That's very interesting because fighters will rarely make that move because they have emotional ties with their trainer. For a fighter to fire his trainer, it has to be something like berserk in order for that to, you know what I mean?
Well, you say that, but a lot of fighters, it's been more fashionable in recent years, hasn't it, for fighters to lose a big fight and then move on. They decide, that they could do better somewhere else because sometimes maybe there's something valid in their desire to learn something else and put things right. But other times maybe it's a lack of a willingness to accept the blame and the loss, take it on their own, shoulders. Sometimes.
But the thing is, it's like, if you're world rated, and you have ability, and to be, completely overwhelmed or defeated without much resistance, not even able to make one stand, you know what I mean? Or that kind of weighs with a fighter and it weighs with a trainer, and they need to, their level of communication just isn't right.
What do you think of all this mandatory trash talk these days? And not just that, but these bit players and characters, like the fathers. You got John Fury does it too, but you had Bill Haney doing it as well.
Yeah.
What I tried when I was looking at them on stage talking all this smack and the dad getting involved and whoever else got involved on, on Progray's side. I was trying to picture Joe Lewis and Max Schmeling doing it, just for the sake of humor. I tried to transpose them with Lewis and Schmeling shouting at each other, and I know things have changed, and somebody on Twitter watched our Nigel Collins bit the other day, and he said, when Nigel's saying it's a joke, and I want to throw stuff at the TV when they say the Four Belt era, someone said, don't tell me that the Silk, if he was magically restored back to full sight and youth, wouldn't fight for an alphabet title. Which the thing is, you did anyway. And he said, old school bitties yelling at clouds is neither here nor there, or has no relevance to modern boxing participation. And so that was what he was kind of saying. That it's that we're not accepting things. The content that we're putting out, we're not accepting things change. I guess that was the whole idea.
No. But the thing is, I'm absolutely accepting of change. Listen, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. It happens on every single day on this earth, on this planet. You know what I mean? If there was no change, there would be no life on the planet. It would just be like,
the
earth
would be atrophied.
Yeah. It would not be it wouldn't be a living organism. And so I do believe in change, and I do believe things, they evolve and they have to get, you would think they would get better. And I think that's the thing. It's not like boxing is getting better than it was. It's not like boxers are getting better than they were. And I think
does it turn you off, some of the modern histrionics and the production of the whole show, or what?
It doesn't turn me off. I just wonder. Sometimes I just look at individuals and I say, how do you see yourself afterwards? Like, how do you, as a grown man, how are you going at it? How do you get into that situation where you're going at it with your son's opponent? Like, you're offended by what he said to your son? Of course he's going to say something to your son. That's who he's fighting. So I don't understand, unless you're going to put the gloves on and go at it with him. I don't understand why you're coming back at him. And I understand that because my father was the same way. He'd say things to my opponents, and I'd be like, thanks. You don't need to give them any more inspiration than they need.
Yeah, it's me they're coming after, not you.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, yo.
By the way, we've had another question about your beverage. We seem to get that quite a lot, the intrigue based on that. Bruce says, quick question. Silk is always drinking that same stuff. What is it? Looks like eggs.
Eggs. It actually, you know what? Oh my God, I've been found out. I'm really into when you watch Rocky for the first time, did you not drink raw eggs?
I did it a couple of times, but you know what? I did it more because Ali said he did it in his autobiography.
Yeah. And
I
you
saw Robbie
believed
do
him?
it as well.
You believed him? I don't think he did.
Ali.
Yeah, I don't think he
Well,
did.
listen, Ali's autobiography, because I read it when I was like 13. I took it hook, line, and sinker at that age.
I
I
remember.
realise
Yeah.
now it was heavily ghosted. It was heavily ghosted.
Yeah.
And it's not really Ali straight to you. It's the product of years he
course.
spent with Richard Durham, his writer.
Yeah.
But do you know what he said? Because he said, what did he say? You know, what I never understood about Ali, young Cassius Clay, according to autobiography, he used to go to school till 4 p.m. Yeah, that's when school finished. He went to Louisville Central High, right? Then he said he worked from 4 to 6 for the Catholic Sisters, he called them. Then he said from 6 to 8 he trained at Fred Martin's Columbia Street Gym. And then at 8 till midnight, he would train for 4 hours at the black gym that Fred Stoner ran on the east side of Louisville, which where he got his real stuff from, because they were black, right? Obviously, they're superior to Caucasian management and nurturing. So anyway, what he didn't seem to allow for was any transit time between these gigs. He would literally was like school till 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8,
magically teleport. Yeah.
He was so quick, even then. He literally just got to the next destination before the room was dark or whatever. Yeah.
Well, you know me. If Ali said it, I believe it.
You do. You're very. See, the thing is, and one thing at one point I would like to make to you, I hope you understand this. I love Ali to death. I'm not going to say more than you or more than life or anything, but Ali is my idol, and even more, Sugar Ray Leonard is probably my favorite fighter, pure fighter, boxer, whatever. But Ali is my idol, and he means more to me, a little bit more to me than Ray does when I think of the enormity of life. I think what would Ali do? I don't think what would Ray do. I love Ray as well, but because I had that debate with you and I argued that Sugar Ray Robinson was probably a greater fighter, pound for pound, based on this, that, and the other. I don't really think Ali means much more to me than Robinson ever could. I love Ali as much.
He means more, but you think Sugar Ray is physically a better fighter?
Do you know? No. Do you know what? And I think that was the point you made. I don't think when you talk about greatness, you have a certain take on it, and I understand that. Yours is pure boxing, and that's all that matters, and I respect that. As I said to you, more people. If we had a whole load of historians and respected men of letters around the table, more of them would agree with me about the Robinson thing, what the argument I was propagating, than you. But I
bet you if we had a series of all fighters,
exactly, because
they would agree with me and not with you.
Well, you say that, but it depends from what era. Because, but that's not what I want to get into. What I would say is, I said to you when we actually broke it down, because I feel I am more paper learned on boxing than you are in terms of things you're supposed to know, inverted commas. You're not affected by that. You've just got your completely organic take on it. And then when we sat down and had that debate, I said this to you at the time. I felt that you won. And when you said, well, listen, everybody says Robinson's the greatest, and it's said and it's reinforced again and again and again. You said, well, he doesn't have the world title record Ali had when he had those 20 defenses over 2 reigns. He has 3 of a welterweight title. He had 8 of the welterweight title and 3 from 5 reigns of the middleweight title. You said he doesn't look better aspect for aspect, and we went through that, and I conceded that to you. And there was a bunch of things. See, if you're cool and you really think you're part of the in crowd, you never say Ali's the greatest, because you either say it's Robinson or you might even say it's Greb or Langford. You know what I mean? That's that kind of game. But when as a boxing man, and I'm still consider myself a boxer more than anything else, like if people want to say historian or author, whatever. Talking to you about it, I actually ended up siding with you when we had the debate because you use a great point. There's no way on earth that Ali doesn't look better on film, peak for peak, with the footage we've got. Do you see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
the establishment view from people who are supposed to know what they're talking about is definitely Robinson. Even though Ali, I've always made that compartmentalization. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time. But there have been a few maybe greater fighters at other weights. But I can't honestly say that you're wrong about that. No, I can't. I can't remember how we got into this, but I hope. That's how we got into it. I want you to understand. I idolize Ali. I'm not a Robinson man. I'm an Ali man. I want you to understand that.
Okay,
no question.
Hopefully, we'll never have to answer this question again. And you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen. I love Sugar Ray Robinson. I absolutely understand where a lot of people are coming from when they say he's the greatest. I mean, he like when you see Sugar Ray Robinson, he's the first like the beautiful slick car that you'd never seen before. Like a Lamborghini or something. He's just something so unique, and he doesn't do it the way anyone has ever done it. And I really respect people that do it different and that have a whole different way to hunt, because it challenges your mind, your perceptions, it challenges your physicality, all those concepts. I mean, I love what he did differently, but then there were just some things that he did that weren't, that when you put them side to side with Ali, I think that's where you get to see the difference in thoroughbreds.
The only grey area we got when we spoke about it at the time was they say Robinson's ultimate peak, which is from about 1947 to about 1950. They don't have a lot of good footage. They got footage, but it's either really yellow and sepia, or it's from a balcony in the Madison Square Garden, or the Philadelphia Stadium or something, and you can't see it properly, and that's the problem. It's frustrating. It's maddening, But no, I still fluctuate these days. Sometimes. Because like I say, Jack Johnson has amazing historical rep, and you read the pros about Jack Johnson, and you think you're watching the most technically smooth, finessed heavyweight ever. It looks like fucking Charlie Chaplin on the screen. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Right? That's why when people talk about fighters from yesteryear and everything, I just can't believe it. I cannot, because
did you watch
if they had today's. They have the kind of character, obviously. They have the kind of character, personality, you know what I mean? Probably even athleticism in order to, like, if they were around today, they would fill out like a normal fighter, and they probably do exceptionally well. Or they could be even super great as well, because they have the videotapes. You can watch other boxers and take things from them. And,
But what about when Scully? Well, Iceman John Scully says the skills of the 1950s fighters are off the charts. All right, not the 1910s. We're not talking about the 1920s, but he says the 1950s. He said their skills were off the charts, and some of those things, some of the guys have lost certain things that they, techniques that were more commonplace then in today's world of boxing. So
and he has a point. There are select fighters that do have that ability, but what they have to do more than anything, the one thing they have to show more than anything is like that toughness, that leather skin kind of, because it's such an abusive sport on the way up. You don't look at Sugar Ray Robinson was a, look, if anybody was a prospect, that was, you know what I mean? Sugar Ray Robinson, but he didn't get, fights like they do with fighters today coming up out of the amateurs, and they're successful, and they get, they feed him like 15 to 20 guys out of you, like this.
Consider this, Michael. Yeah, consider this. He turned pro in 1940, and he knocked out a guy called Joe Echeverria in the first round, It was on the undercard of Henry Armstrong losing to Fritzy Zivic. Armstrong made 19 defenses of the World Welterweight Championship, and then he lost it to Fritzy Zivic after 19 defenses. Now, Ray boxed on the undercard. Sugar Ray made his debut that night, and I think he came back in a car with Armstrong or something, and he said he felt bad for Armstrong who'd lost to Zivic, and he vowed revenge. He said, one day I'll beat Zivic. A year later, he beat Zivic twice.
That's
1941. That is insane, right?
That's insane, yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you look at the fighters of that day, like
Ali didn't do that, did he?
No, he didn't. But no, he didn't do that. And it was a little bit more. It was like, it was obviously a lot more rough. It was dirty. But Ali in the 60s, it wasn't like it was that much better either.
It was still rough. Honestly, it was still rough. There was not much time between them.
Look, in the 70s and even in the 80s, it was ugly, and there really weren't, like, just the gym culture and everyone is warring. There's no save yourself until tomorrow, nothing. That didn't come current until like the 90s or maybe even 2000s. But yeah, it is a beast. It is just a grinding house. It's a grind house for real.
Going back to Devin Haney, then obviously there's big fights out there for him, probably at 140 now. I don't know if he'll go back to lightweight now. He's a big guy. He was massive for lightweight. He looks big for light welter. Obviously, people talk about fights with like Tank Davis, like you said, maybe Shakur Stevenson, who didn't exactly set the world alight last time when he boxed, but he's still undefeated, and he's obviously still a major league fighter. You said that you're very confident that Davis will beat Haney.
I am. I do feel strong about this kid Davis he's special. He's really good. So if he's got his head on right and he's got his training down, I mean, we always say that about people that we hear, sort of like burn the candle at both ends or have, things that
Yeah.
can cause distractions during, and sometimes distractions work for them because they're able to, garner that energy and do something positive, turn a kind of like a bad energy into a good energy, let's just say, and they use it to fuel their fight. I I do like Davis a lot. He's one of my top 5 in terms of favorite fighters today,
Right now, yeah.
and right now going, yeah. But this kid, here's the thing, because I always want to talk about this. It always frustrates me, and I don't want to get off the fight right away. I wanted to say, do you know why fighters can't let their hands go? Like this kid Prograis, right? Like he should have been throwing more punches. I don't know how many he threw, but it didn't seem like he threw a lot. But throughout the whole fight, from round 1 to round 12,
Well, just because they're not confident, I guess.
you think he's not confident that he can hit Haney, and that's why.
Yeah, and I guess people get worried. People always said with Floyd Mayweather, he made people really gun shy because they didn't want to get countered, and they were having trouble hitting him at all.
Yeah.
And it just inhibited their kind of output, really,
And if you had Prograis, how would you get him past that during the fight? Like you're his cornerman and you see him doing that. How do you get him past that?
I think you say you just got to fight him. You got to stop trying to figure him out. Like Gil Clancy said that time, you're not going to figure him out. You just got to fight him. You got to hit. You've got to hit him in the body. You've got to go at him. You've got to try and take this to the trenches a bit. It's got to be better than what's happening now because he is absolutely dictating you at range, and he's picking you off at will. Whichever direction he goes in. So you got to fight him. What was that?
That was the picture on the wall. You see, it's lower now.
Yeah, you're lower. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I almost got decapitated by the picture.
That would have been the clickbait.
that would have been some
but...
good TV, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would have seen it with bittersweet mixed emotions, the whole affair. But yes.
Wow, okay. All right. So anyway, it missed. I
wish
Hearns would have missed that off.
What about Crawford at 147? Says Abid Ali, thinking ahead with Devin Haney.
Crawford and Haney. I believe Crawford would be too much for him. Way too strong.
So do I.
Way too strong. Too intelligent. Too much everything. No, that he would run him out the ring. That would be the worst fight for him to take, I think.
Yeah.
But basically what I was saying, like in terms of, I believe what you have to do as a trainer is you have to get your fighter to start punching before he gets there. You don't wait till you get there because you have a kid like Haney, you're never going to get there. You have to punch on your way in, and you have to say to yourself, okay, the first 2 punches, they're throwaways. You're looking to hit him with the third punch. The first and second punch are giveaways. You're laying down the fire, right? It's cover fire, just like in warfare. It's cover fire before you get there, so you can maneuver behind the punches. But you can't just, you wait, you walk, you wait, and you're waiting for this opportunity to just present itself where the guy's going to let you hit him on the chin, and that's not how Haney fights. He's always moving, and because he's always moving, you're always picking up your feet. If you're a puncher, you're always picking up your feet. That makes you a less effective puncher. You can't punch. Punchers can't generally move and punch simultaneously. It's the boxing.
Sugar Ray Robinson could, by the way.
As it can.
Sugar Ray Robinson could do that. That was what was rare about him.
No, that was amazing about him. And Ali could do it, and Sugar Ray Leonard can do it, and you know. There are a lot of fighters that could, but that's one of the things that also, with Sugar Ray and Hagler had that problem because Sugar Ray didn't plant his feet. And so Hagler didn't have the chance to, let go and take control of that fight. But that's the problem with Prograis last night that needed to be said to him immediately. Start punching before you get there. Don't get there and then start punching, because when you get there, he punches. He's got quick reflexes. He lets his hands go, and he's waiting for you to move into range. You move into range, he throws, then he's back out again. The pivoting and turning, and forget it. You'll never catch a guy like that. You have to initiate, but you need to throw some punches first because he's not going to exchange with you. So if you start before you get into range, you're good.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I think I suppose it's demoralising to be in the position that Prograis was in last night, you know, and that obviously takes a lot out of a fighter, like, you know, that Jeff Lacey, Joe Calzaghe kind of syndrome, and part of the training.
I don't think he got beat that bad though. Like, no, I mean, I know he lost every round, but physically he didn't.
No, it was more like Whittaker Ramirez, like, you know, I would say liking it to. With a knockdown as well in the second round, it's almost very similar in that sense, you know. But like I say, it's part of a coach's role and job to try and arrest that kind of mental rot that sets in as well, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
As well as it's interesting when you said though, tell him how to do it. When they said, you know, you need a knockout to win, you said, well, maybe they should tell him how he's going to go about trying to affect that. But that was funny, you know, because Roger Mayweather apparently once slagged off Angelo Dundee or was criticising Dundee because he said everybody shouts him out for saying, "You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it." He says, "Why don't you tell him what a motherfucking do?" He said, you know, well, just tell him he's blowing it. What good is that? But luckily, Ray knew what to do.
It worked for Leonard.
It worked for Ray because he knew what to do, right?
Exactly.
He knew what he had to do. And more importantly, he could do it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing with Ray. He has like that arsenal and he could do anything you ask him to do. I mean, look at him. In the first fight with Roberto Duran, he fought Duran toe to toe. The worst thing about that fight was he did not throw a straight right hand at all. At any point in that fight did he not straighten out his right hand. Yeah. Everything was looping, and you don't hit Duran with shots, not generally anyway. Like I know you got dropped when you got dropped by a hook and everything, but if you cannot beat him throwing hooks because he's the type of fighter he sees that. He sees your body moving. Same with James Toney. It's got to be straight fire down the line and maintain your range and distance and throw down the pipe. You don't come around here to the sides because they eat you up. They absolutely do. That's why Duran was so successful as he moved up through junior welter and welterweight and junior middleweight and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, he skipped junior welter, didn't he? He totally bypassed junior welter.
I think he fought Joseph Sabuga there, didn't he?
Well, do you know what? They may have been classed as junior welterweight. They were over the weight, although I think most of them were over the junior welterweight limit as well, to be honest. In Google, whatever his name was. But he didn't target like welterweight division. He may have found himself coincidentally in it when he was getting ready to move up.
He was just Duran was about that money. He was just like, man, junior welterweights.
But you know what? Him and Aaron Pryor could have fought Aaron Pryor that same June that he fought Sugar Ray Leonard. Obviously, the Leonard fight was much bigger, but him and Pryor could have been a thing.
That would have been an amazing fight. But did Pryor have the title by then?
Yes, he beat Cervantes for it earlier that year.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Well, that certainly wasn't the millions of dollars he was looking for, I'm sure. And after what was he at like at that point? He was like 60-1 or something like that. Duran.
Going into the Leonard rematch, he was 72-1.
That's crazy.
It's insane, right?
That's insane. 72.
I mean, some people argue that Duran's a greater fighter than Ali. So you will hear that. I'm not saying I agree with it, but you will hear that. And you know what?
Yeah.
I hated Duran. I hated Duran when I was 10 because he beat Ray Leonard, which I didn't like. I'd only just latched onto Leonard. I literally only heard of him after the Dave Boy Green fight because I was only 10. And then Duran beat him, which disappointed me a great deal because I stayed up to watch it with my mum. And I was looking for what I thought Sugar Ray was, and I didn't see it that night. I was like, what's he doing? So then he loses, and then I read in Boxing News the next week, someone wrote into the letters page saying, people who see Muhammad Ali as the greatest don't know much about boxing. Roberto is head and shoulders above the rest. So I had a real downer on Duran from a young age.
You and me both. I was a Sugar Ray fan. I remember, I was 79, so I was an amateur and new to the sport. And I was all about Sugar Ray, but I just, obviously how could you not appreciate him? The more I found out about what boxing was and the abilities and what you have to do. And I looked at him and I was like, wow, this kid he's incredible. What he's able to accomplish, things he's been able to do, fighters he beat, and technically his ability is just off the charts. He really is he's a master of his art.
Yeah, it's easier to appreciate Leonard and Ali, when you're young, when you're a kid coming to it. Duran, you have to be a little bit older to really appreciate Duran. Even by the time I was 14, 15, I knew exactly who he was and how good he was. You know.
Yeah. He's absolutely a different vintage, but he's and you know what, his whole styles, a fighter's styles reflect their personalities, and
Absolutely.
and Duran's style wasn't my personality. You know what I mean? I was definitely much more into, like, I could understand Ali and Sugar Ray, and you know what I mean, even Charlie White Lightning Brown, and you know all the rest of that. But Duran's personality to me seemed like mayhem, and me and mayhem don't get along very well. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, with Duran, he would party sometimes. You know, I remember there was an interview in one of those World Boxing magazines after the Leonard Nomas surrender, and they were saying that he was ticking over in Panama. He was coming to terms with the public backlash. He said it wasn't as bad as people said. That Panama didn't disown him, but it was obviously a little bit of a difficult time for him. But they were describing his regime at the time, and it said, this is training Roberto Duran style: a few whiskeys at night and a few laps at the park in the morning. You know, he'd be running, but he'd have a few drinks the night before. And
well, the thing is, you know, there's so many legends about Duran. One of the things he did, he was like, he'd be able to come in after like 5-6 months of not training after a fight, get in the gym and box anyone in the gym. Like, just get in the ring and spar anybody.
Have you ever seen that footage of him and Nigel Benn having a little move around?
Oh yeah. Duran was amazing. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible that he was able to do that. What he was able.
And Nigel is sharp and ready to fight and young, yeah. And Roberto is overweight.
Yeah,
you know,
and he's punching him with two hands at the same time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, I don't know if I saw it, but I did that I was sparring with Vito Antifermo, and I did that. And Vito got so mad at me.
What gym was that?
That was at Gleason's.
Okay. Well, could you get Vito on the show sometime?
Vito, I don't think he's very well, I mean, I can certainly ask.
You could try.
Yeah, I can try.
Yeah.
That would be a cool. Great to have him. I'm just not sure.
He's an actor like Gary. He's been into Sopranos and stuff like that, right? So, you know.
Yeah, probably not recently, right? The Sopranos has been off the air for like 10 years.
Yeah, I'm still watching it lately. I still watch it now. I'm still working my way through it again. But
that's like American Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, and I've not watched Peaky Blinders ever. Have you watched that? Is that good?
I've never seen it, but you know what I mean? They got the hat like you, so maybe I have.
Well, I was thinking of watching Peaky Blinders because everybody raves about it, but
yeah, they do.
But so maybe I'll check it out. Duran versus Ayala would have been fun, says Abid Ali. In 1982, that would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been a great fight. I mean, Tony Ayala had, you know, everyone talked about his power and everything and his mean streak, and those being the two biggest attributes he had going for him. His power and his mean streak. And that's not enough to fight a legend like, you know, Duran. To beat a legend like Duran.
I think he'd have beat the Duran that lost to Kirkland Lang, but he wouldn't have beat the Duran that beat David Moore, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Mike Ayala thinks Tony would have beat anybody. This was the interesting thing. This time last year, I was in San Antonio, and the book still wasn't written. It wasn't finished. And I spent a lot of time with Mike, obviously, and we spoke a lot. And he was of the view, he thought that it's his brother, for God's sake, but he was saying, Tony, if he'd have carried on going on song, Tony would have beat Duran, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler. Whereas I said that, Mike, I'm not going to lie to you. I think too much of you to mislead you. I don't agree with you on any of those. I said, you know, I've got to tell you the truth. I think he might have beat Duran, maybe the rest of them beat him.
I think it's, you know, it's a fight. I couldn't say that anyone was going to take it to, if anyone would be able to take it to Ayala and beat him hands down, like clean, it would be probably Hearns, just because he understands range, reflexes. And I don't know that Tony moves fast enough that he'd be able to get out of Hearns' way.
The thing about Ayala was it was all a legend and it was all about potential. Everything to him was about his potential.
Yeah.
The excitement about him, as well as that mean streak and the savagery that was seen to be inside of him, it was the fact he did things that were so nice and veteran-esque, even though he was only a kid. Yeah. He was only like 19, you know. 18,
yeah, he rolled with shots. He would do things that are Duran-esque, really.
He looked like he had phenomenal ability, even though he was shooting heroin and drinking. And he had this savage kind of, machismo streak that looked like it was borderline ugly, that made people fascinated, a freak show kind of value. But he never, if you look at his career, he never beat anybody really. I say that with all due respect to the Ayala family, and Mike and my good friend. But it was all about what he might have done, which is fair enough because he did have great skills and great potential. But if you look at his resume, the best fighter he beat was who? Carlos Herrera, right?
Was he? Didn't he also beat Gary Guyton, right? Gary was all right fighter.
Yeah, but sure, but exactly, but
no, he didn't fight. He didn't beat anybody great. That's
or even that. But never mind, great. He didn't beat anybody elite or close or that kind of thing.
Not elite, but elite would be great.
Well, no, elite is elite now. Great is great forever. that elite, yeah, elite is a term I use for fighters who are the upper echelons today. Great is something when they retire, we discuss that. But, yeah. Just so maybe we should let the audience in on our grammatical arguments as well, and about the correct also and as well. I'm sure they'd love to hear that.
We definitely take excerpts out. I know. I haven't seen Tony's record in a while, but I know he beat Gary Guyton, he beat Robbie Epps. He
beat those kind of guys, Mario Maldonado.
Yeah, like legitimate fighters, not, real fighters. These guys are employed and they would thrash a lot of guys, but they're not world champion level either. No.
So he never really stepped up. There was massive expectations around him, a lot of excitement around him because he looked like he had phenomenal potential, And obviously, to me, it fascinated me. I've said this before when we did an episode on it, that I was only 12, 13 when I was 13 when he got sent down, and I just heard about this guy that everybody said was gonna walk through everybody and be one of the greats and was gonna beat Roberto Duran. He spat at an opponent. He was shooting heroin before walking into the ring, and then he committed rape. And it all seemed rather fascinating to me. You know what I mean?
It's definitely something to. I mean, wow, to be like that full. I don't understand how. Like he has these demons, right? He obviously has this demon in him, and he's a fighter, and his fighting can't fulfill that demon.
Yeah, it cannot quench that.
Yeah, it can't be quenched by fighting, and generally that's what. See, when you douse something with pain, like you also want peace at some point. You know what I mean? Yeah. But maybe it's because he didn't get to that level of guy that was going to give him that kind of pain. He couldn't understand it because this pain is one way. He dishes it out. It's always going out. And if when you're ahead, when you're winning, everyone's happy then. Life's good. Yeah. But when it comes back at you and pain hits you, then you have to start thinking about it differently. And that's the only time really that men respect other men. If he has the ability to hurt me, I have to give it respect. You know what I mean? That's really kind of how it works. That's how the fight game works.
It's primeval.
It absolutely is. It deals with the root of our nature, our physical and emotional nature.
So, there's a world title fight happening in Britain tonight in the UK. I imagine it's not on yet because main event's probably about 10 o'clock or something. And I bet you haven't heard of this guy. His name's Chris Billam-Smith. He's defending I believe it's the WBO cruiserweight title in his hometown of Bournemouth, the Seaside Resort in the UK tonight. Are you familiar with him?
Unequivocally, no.
And this is the thing. I don't say that to try and put you on the spot. I say it. I'm sure you know.
No, please put me on the spot.
Well, no, I'm sure you understand the angle I'm coming from. Is that these are so kind of marginalised today. This is a world championship fight, and it's not on your radar because it's UK. It's.
Yeah.
He does leave me somewhat cold, Billam-Smith. As far as I see him, a little bit as a domestic world champion. That is a thing in this era.
So he's fighting for a world championship.
Well, he's already got it. He won it last time out against a guy called Lawrence Okoli, and he's defending it tonight against a Polish challenger. And
how does he look? Does he look like? Explain his thing to me. What's his record? What is he? Good fighter? Do you think
He
he's going
got. Listen, I think he's one of those guys who would have been considered a good fighter back in the day. You know, and would have been boxing for a British title for now. You know what I mean? And maybe a Commonwealth title or something. But these days, the supply and demand of world championship boxing, this is where it's gotten us. You know. By the way, did you know as well, Jay Opitar, who was the IBF cruiserweight champion, he's boxing on that mega show in Saudi Arabia on December 23rd, right, in 2 weeks' time. And he was boxing a guy from Britain again called Ellis Zorro. And he, the IBF refused him as a challenger. They rejected him and said, we are not sanctioning that fight as a world title fight. And they told him he couldn't do it. You know, you're not fighting him. You're not defending our belt against him. So what Opitar is going to be doing, because he's getting life-changing money, supposedly, from the Saudis for a 2-fight deal, he's going to drop the IBF belt and fight this Zorro anyway. Which to me suggests it's further confirmation of how these world titles are far more dispensable now, and you know fighters actually junk them quite a lot now, you know, for different reasons. So that's where we are. So that's what I mentioned, Billum Smith, because I knew you wouldn't have heard of him, and I wouldn't expect you to have heard of him. And I mentioned Opitar as a further example of the way I just think we've lost our way with it, you know. And when that guy accuses me and Nigel Collins of being old school bitties, yelling at clouds, I just think we've lost it. Yeah, you like that, right? Because the thing is, I thought he was having a go at you because he said, "No, don't tell me the Silk wouldn't fight for whatever it was magically restored to youth and full sight." And I came back, I thought it was pithy. I said, "The Silk didn't actually say anything in this clip." He said, "No, but the two bitties did." That's why I wrote what I wrote. So I don't like that guy.
Funny. That's funny. Spitting it. What was it? Tell me the saying again. What are clouds? That's hilarious.
That old school bitties yelling at clouds are an irrelevant.
Bitties, like F-I. You said F-I-T-T-Y? I-S?
No, bitties. Bit as a B for Bravo.
That's a terminology I'd never heard before.
I've never heard it. I don't know what it is, and I don't really care. But it is what it is. It's
And how do you feel? Do you feel offended by that, or are you sensitive to what he's saying, or is it water off a duck's back?
Yeah, of course it's water for duck. Listen, I have been pilloried in my time. I've been pilloried. I don't know if you even remember that thing when the thing about the tickets happened, and there was a big scandal that erupted all over the internet. You know, and I was banned from Eddie Hearn matchroom shows for life. They were saying, I think Eddie said that, although I never heard him say it, but people tell me he said it. I've been absolutely pilloried. People have said I'm a fraud and I never even boxed. And, you know, I mean, I get lots of love as well and tributes, you know, and I get to work with illustrious people like yourself. But there is a faction of the internet that have really slammed me. So I can't afford to get too fragile about taking a mutual insult with Nigel Collins on the chin. I mean, I hope they recognise that we're of different generations, me and Nigel, but that's about it, you know. But no, it doesn't. Like I say, I've had it all, Silk. You know, if you look at the book reviews, there's some really savage, and it's people who just don't like me. It's nothing to do with the books. You know what I mean? It's
yeah. It's wild.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I wonder what it is that they. Do you feel the need to go deeper to find out why they don't like you and maybe do some sort of therapeutically, like to help heal your wounds?
No. I think what I've learned to do is ignore it. When I was still drinking, I used to get drawn a bit more, and I would. There was a few times because I knew who some of these people were. Some of them were working behind fake profiles, but I knew who some of them were. And there was a few people I was making plans I'm going to go up to because they never seemed to live in London. It was always another part of the country. I was going to get them. I was going to find them. And I was just going to jump on them and say, okay, it's on now. You know, you're going to answer to what you said now, motherfucker. But I don't feel that way anymore. Since I got sober, you know, a few years ago, I've just learned to turn that noise off.
When you got sober, you got sense.
Yeah, well, because when you're drinking and you're living in that kind of context of alcoholism, and you're either drunk, hungover, or somewhere in between the two states and all the rest of it, you're not making good decisions, and you do tend to be full of more resentments and stuff, you know, and you tend to be a little self-obsessed, not in a good way. So yeah, I mean, I used to get involved in arguments quite easily. I was probably pretty good. You know, people would get a rise out of me at one point. Whereas I've learned years ago not not to react to that stuff now. You know?
But even now, I think some of it remains because you're quick to take people to task if you don't think they're accurate on a point or something.
Yeah, well, and I think you and I are both like that because you
No,
have that.
no. I don't take people to task if I think they're wrong, right or wrong. No, my thing is different. I think.
But you will argue a corner like when we talk about the Katie Taylor knockdown or not knockdown, and you just kept saying, "Play it again, play it again." You know, like we were in the movie or something.
No, because I think it's very clear if you were to watch it. My point.
But the thing is, the stupid thing about that was, on the day was I told you I couldn't see it. The only person who was seeing it was you. And every time we finished and we started arguing about what I hadn't seen, you kept saying, "Play it again."
Yeah, so then why did you disagree with me? You obviously should have just said, "Well, I trust."
Because I'd already watched it a bunch of times. That's why. But I don't want to get back into that again anyway. He doesn't look too wounded, Silk, says Ellen. Yeah, exactly. She can tell. But,
so what do you think now with Prograis, right? What do you think he does?
Well,
do you think he was just?
I didn't realize he was 35 already. I wasn't sure how old he was.
He looks a lot younger than that. I would never.
You know what I mean? So I thought he might be more like 29 or something. So if he's 35, as Bruce said, maybe he is looking at the end of a top class career.
Well, he's got millions of dollars in his bank account now. I mean,
yeah, and he earned big money for the last fight. You know what I mean? Because you remember, he was the one who said his check bounced when he boxed. I think when he won the title, which I think was vacant, the WBC welterweight title. Mm-hmm. He said that the check bounced last time, but he got it in the end. But he actually put it on social media. The check has bounced. Wow. And they said, why don't you hang fire before you say that? It will clear. Don't worry. But you don't have to put it all over Twitter.
Oh, so he got paid. Sorry, excuse me. He got the check and then didn't wait for a couple of days for it to.
He said it bounced. Whatever. He reckons the check rebounded on it.
Bounced.
He said it bounced, but it got sorted out. But not before he put it publicly that his check.
Well, listen. As a fighter, you're on hyper alert with all that because man, you get taken to the cleanest so often. So I feel his pain on stuff like that. I can to this day I still have fights where I don't remember getting paid for, and. You know what I mean? People say, "Well, you took too many punches, whatever." But believe me, if I were to go back, you just.
What about Gary? What about Gary with that Eubank fight? He says that he didn't get anything like what he was supposed to get. And the thing with Gary is he says now he's ready to do something about it. But unfortunately, it's a little bit late, isn't it?
Yeah, I let it. When it happened to me, I let it go because the kind of people that had my money were kind of like unsavory. So. I'm not going to open up that can of worms. That's for sure.
No, well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I don't see you at the center of some kind of gangland kind of struggle. I don't. I know you are an intense, tough individual. I would have you in the trenches with me, but I don't. I said it before when we had Mike Ayala on. I don't picture you automatically in a street fight. That's harder for me to picture. If Mike says he had a street fight when he's younger, I don't have any trouble. Imagining it at all. Whereas yourself, I think you're too cerebral for that. I think you probably construct some elaborate kind of thing where someone stepped on a certain square and then suddenly combusted, and you planned it for like 6 months. I think would be the
thing. Yeah, I do tend to run things through the brain a lot, and that's sometimes. Like as a fighter, it's much better to be instinctual. But then again, as long as your instincts have been trained. So, you know what I mean? There's the cerebral part, and you think about it and you overanalyze it. And that's what happens with a lot of fights. A lot of guys that fight is you overanalyze what it is. You and you don't get to the point whereas you're able to fight naturally because you're thinking about it too much. Like my trainer said, this is what I got to do to beat him. And so you stay on that, and at no point do you know what I mean? Do you shed that?
Figure out yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do it on field, don't you? You have to do it on field.
It really
and
is.
When people say sometimes he's a thinking fighter, you know this.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people might have called you a thinking fighter, you were actually doing it on feel and instinct, on osmosis.
Well, it's really interesting, Ben, because you look at fighters, you look at things like the Philly shell and different types of defenses and different types of ways to slip punches and react and all the rest of that kind of stuff. These defensive moves they were reflexes before they were like defensive weapons. Like it just happened to.
Yeah,
like,
nobody taught them first, and then
Yes.
somebody used it. Someone did it first, and it
Exactly.
became straight off
It
the
was
arch.
it was done accidentally in the moment because that's how you preserve yourself. You know what I mean? Like I pulled back from that punch because what else would you do if someone punched you in the face? You'd pull back from it.
Yeah.
And then I honed it to the point where it now was, a practice thing that everyone else can do as well. But somebody did that initially by accident at first, and they just repeated it until it started to make sense. And that's what's beautiful about boxing. You know what I mean? That's why it's so creative and it's so like a gentleman can embody so many different things. I don't know. It's really cool.
It is, and like you say, you'd think there wasn't too many ultimately different ways you could set about punching somebody whilst avoiding their return fire as best you could. But there is, but the intricacies of it, I still see combinations today I've never seen before.
Yes.
And you think you know every combination now, and then you see something, whatever it is, and you're like, oh, that's a little different. And it's only a 4-punch combo, but you're like, I've never seen them in that order before.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I love that about boxing. Guys can still create. There are those that are just you're always able to do it different. And I think that's so because a fighter's style is their personality.
I definitely think it is. I mean, I've always agreed with you on that. And I've probably told you this before because you say it quite a lot, and I probably always say this in return. But I read a Mike Tyson interview in 1986 on the front. He was in KO magazine. He was on the front, and he did the interview. And he said, fighters fight like their personalities. And I've definitely told you this before. He said, everybody says Camacho fights like Pep. He says, I don't think so. He says, they're two totally different personalities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said, you need to look harder if you think Camacho fights like Pep.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Camacho had a very savage side to him. And self-preservation was a major part of his style.
Yeah.
But when he feels like he had an up on you, he was vicious.
And I also like what he said. He said, if you're dirty, I got something for you. If you're a dirty fighter, then he can fight dirty as well,
Yeah, he certainly could do that. And I remember he was always turning around to the back of people and punching them in the face.
He would spin around, like Lomachenko does today. Hector could get right behind you with a shot. Like when you throw, it's always hard to do demonstrations, so we're always sitting down, and that's why it's a shame we never got to do our thing when we met physically to get in the gym, but we'll do it another time. Maybe we'll do it in Saudi Arabia. But he did that thing where he'd throw his straight left, the southpaw left, and he managed to move with it. So he was shifting and getting behind the opponent as he threw that left hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is, I've never quite understood how he did it. I've sort of tried to copy it over the years. And but there was something about the way he did it was very, very natural.
The thing is, his whole thing was, it was always self-preservation and get there before the other guy does. And that's he was also very he was intelligent. You know what I mean? I don't know if the word is intelligent or like he operated on a genius level when he fought. Like his ability was that crazy. Like he could throw complex combinations like Roy Jones would. You know what I mean? I mean, they were a lot more straighter and direct. But his timing, he'd change his timing up and he'd change his angles up and just little subtle things. He wouldn't always throw it like this. Sometimes that punch would come like this. And again, most fighters, everyone learns how to punch. No one learns to defend from a punch. So guys with defense tends to go do a little bit better. If you've got a good offense and you've got a semblance of a good defense as well, you're going to go further. And that's, and that was Camacho.
For sure. And it's a shame he left us when he did at 50 years old. It was like 11 years ago now. I hear somebody got arrested for that finally a little while ago.
And we met in Atlantic City, Hector Camacho Jr.
We did, and I asked him where the street was named after his dad. He told me it was 115th and Lexington, so I went there when I got back to New York because I had a free day to look around. So
I used to live just a couple of blocks away. I was on 110.
You live in Spanish Harlem, yeah?
Yeah, I lived in Spanish Harlem, right there. Gateway to Harlem, right there.
I used to to live there insofar as I lived in a place called the Manhattan Youth Castle, in 101st and Lexington, and it was a hostel, right? But it was cool because it was run by these Italian/Swiss people. They lived on the border between Italy and Switzerland, and they used to kind of vaguely vet who came in and make sure we were cool. And then they just used to give us keys, and then they would leave. The office would shut at 6, and then basically the guests were in charge of the hostel and basically trusted to look after it at night time.
Wow. Yeah. The hostel. Did you have to flog your golly to make money?
Did I have to do what?
Flog your golly.
What does that even mean, Silk? I could probably guess. What does that even mean?
You've never heard the term flog your golly before?
No, is that like to do with prostitution?
I mean, there's only one guess, right? I mean, come on.
But you know what? It's funny you should say that because I met an escort girl there. There's this girl.
You see? What did I tell you?
Yeah, see. There was this chick from Albuquerque, right? There was a chick from Albuquerque that I got chatting to because everybody, regulars in the hostel, knew each other. You know, they're all international travelers from the States or from somewhere else. You know, like I say, they wouldn't be international if they're from America, but you know what I mean? There was all travelers, whether they're from the States or international. And we got chatting and talking and whatever. And then she said to me at some point, I hope you don't think bad of me, but I've kind of been working as an escort. And I obviously, I said, no, you know, I think she knew I wouldn't be judgmental, and I'd obviously walked on the wild side a little bit, you know. So we palled up, and because I was the only one at the time who knew what she did, she felt I was her best friend, and she would take me for breakfast and stuff in the mornings when she'd been out of work all night because her pager would go off.
That would certainly cement the friendship if she's picking up dinner.
You can imagine, you know. Yeah, you know how I roll.
I'd forgive her a whole host of things. She's gonna pay for everything.
Yeah, do you know what? There's no moral compass anymore. It's gone. But the thing was, no, she used to get paid because we'd be in these dormitories. They were communal dormitories. When you were a little younger, that seemed okay. It's not the sort of accommodation I would get now. But it was fun back then. And her pager would go off at maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and she'd get all dressed up and makeup and all this, and she'd go out to work. But she told everybody she was doing night research for a law firm.
Oh man!
But obviously, she wasn't, you know. But but it's funny because we got quite close, and in the end, she said to me, "Listen," because she was making quite good money of a night time.
Yeah.
So certainly more than I was busking on the subway. Okay. So this is 2000. This is 2003, by the way, just before I started boxing again. She's actually why I started boxing again to an extent. I'll finish on. We'll finish on this, right? So she says, "You can come and live with me when I get a place. I like you, and you know you're cool, so you can come and live with me." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." But then we kind of crossed the line of our platonic friendship a day before we were due to move into the place, and then she went all weird on me. You know that next morning vibe. You know, she's like, "Oh, we shouldn't have done that," or "It was the Jack Daniels, whatever." Next minute she's been really frosty with me. And we're definitely not. We're not on. There's not going to be any repercussions of what happened. And she moved this Aussie chick in as well, who I didn't like much. Who really got my nerves. So it was like the girls ganging up on me. And then she started this relationship with this one of the Swiss Italian guys. And I was like, you know what? And I'd gotten kind of fond of her. So I got so pissed off. I thought, I'm going to go to Gleason's gym and join up. I actually did. Yeah. And I hadn't boxed for years. And I started training and I really got in at Gleason's. And that is the sole reason why I'm talking to you now. And that I have any kind of social media presence in a boxing context whatsoever. And why I came back to the ring and everything. Because I was feeling really pissed off living with the escort girl on the Upper West Side.
Oh, it was Upper West Side.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like 110th in Columbia or something.
Columbia.
It was pretty near. Columbus. You know Tom's Diner. You know Tom's Diner, the famous restaurant. It was pretty near there.
That's just that's 3 blocks from me. Are you kidding?
What? Would you have been there 2003?
No, I wouldn't have been. 2003. No, but a few years later, I moved up here.
You know, that girl is still on my Facebook, by the way. So if I should be careful what I'm saying, but I've said it now.
As long as she doesn't have a brother, I think you're all right.
Yeah, she's married now. Funny enough, to the Swiss Italian guy. You know, she's to
the same guy, the one she left you for.
Kind of, yeah. If you want to put it in those terms, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all right to lose people that should be lost. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, she came to my fight anyway because obviously I started training. I remember Roy Jones had just beat John Ruiz. I joined up the Monday after the Saturday when Jones beat Ruiz. And then I started training, and by July I got an amateur card and had a fight out there. And she came to the fight and all the rest of it, you know. So as did a bunch of other chicks. So it was okay.
Regular chick magnet. You know, I had some girls come to my fight. It was hilarious.
Well, you posted a clip the other day when you said Angelo and Lee told them all to be a bit quiet, not to go too crazy. The RJ Appreciation Club, yeah.
Yeah, we had some good times. Oh my God, wow!
Yeah.
I'll tell you about them sometime. Next time we're in Atlantic City, I'll draw the picture for you. It was wild.
We got to do that every year. The AC thing, of course, amongst other things.
Yeah, AC was great. It was a good time. I really love it. They do such a great job. Everyone who loves boxing, they should go there. You get one-on-one with like all these great fighters that no other way would you see or meet. There's no way you would meet them or see them.
No, it is brilliant. And remember putting Mike Ayala on the phone to Danny Little Red Lopez.
Yeah.
Was kind of a cool moment. And, you know, and Scully as well. Scully is brilliant. The way he never switches off the whole weekend or the whole time. He's just doing something to raise money for fighters or pull us all together in our community.
Yeah. John's he's like I said, he's the patron saint of pugilism.
Yeah, he is, yeah. He is.
He's a good man.
On that note, my Raiders are about to play. So as you can see, I'm winding down in terms of what I can say. As long as the Raiders are going to come on, I got to get focused now. Got to get my football jersey and my helmet and yeah. Oh, this is the not eggs. This is the Korean tea that I told you about. Same stuff I had last week, but it's grapefruit tea. Grapefruit tea, and it's really good. So, and this is grapefruit at the bottom, so it looks like yolk, but it's no yolk.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, bro. No, but good stuff. Next time you're over, you should discover this. It's different. It's different than English breakfast. I know you're stuck on English breakfast, but this one right here is going to change your mind, open your horizons, and you should experience more things as you go along. Once you stop experiencing, then you stop growing, Ben. And every experience you have, you can relate it to boxing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Enhance your abilities.
Thanks for your input as usual, Silk. And just to be clear, because with this arose the other day, didn't it? I'm the sidekick, right? You're not the
sidekick. I'm the Lone Ranger. You're Tonto.
Okay. Well, I think we should let the public. I think we should let the public decide. We should let the public decide. But thanks for joining me as always. Gary will be back soon, I don't doubt. Guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate your support. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's not just a podcast. We've got other peripheral content coming at you from the world of boxing, including weigh-ins, press conferences, and fight nights. Be lucky. Keep punching. We see you soon.